There's a time in each year that we always hold dear, good old summertime, with the birds in the trees and sweet scented breezes, good old summertime. When your day's work is over, then you are in clover, and life is one beautiful rhyme. No trouble annoying, each one is enjoying the good old summertime.
Hello and welcome everybody. Today I want to take a few minutes to talk about the upcoming Gateron cream soda switch and talk to you a little bit about where it came from, the process of how I got to what we have in our hands right now, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the specifications as well as demonstrate how I would go about lubing these switches. So the Gateron cream soda is a soda shop inspired switch that is inspired by a beverage, and that's not the cream soda that we know in like A&W or in like IBC. It's cream soda in the old-fashioned sense, where they would pour a soda water over top of ice cream in a glass, so it's kind of like a float, and then they would either top it with a cherry, and a lot of times soda shops use red straws. And that's what this represents. So that's why we have this kind of creamier color, and then the whiter top, and then the red stem to represent that straw or that cherry. And the reason why I decided to go with this theme is because it kind of reminded me of an old soda shop that we had at a camp that I went to when I was younger. And it just kind of symbolizes simpler times, if you will. And it symbolizes, you know, when things were easier, when you know, a lot of us that are older in the hobby were youngsters. You know, being an avid collector of vintage video games and things like that myself, it just seemed appropriate that this is kind of symbolic of me in some capacity. And again, that peace of mind, the simpler time, being young, you know, just working for a parent or, you know, family member in the summer, and then taking those earnings and going out and hanging out with your friends on the weekend. And I thought to myself, what better than, you know, like an old school 50s soda shop or diner. So we will see, providing that this switch is as well received as it has demonstrated in the interest check, we will see other products coming within that line, hopefully. So be sure to check me out on my different socials and follow along, and you know, we'll see what comes of it. So let's talk a little bit about how the cream soda came to be. I started off with a milky yellow, and I swapped in burgundy stems from Kale Burgundy switches, and I fell in love with that sound, and I did a couple boards like that. And I thought, well, what if I did ink bottoms? You know, ink bottoms or inks are pretty popular. So then I swapped over to a black ink bottom, and I kind of fell in love with the sound. And so that's where the concept of the cream soda was born, was, you know, the long pull stem with the milky top and the ink bottom. So when I put these into the same board that I had the long pull milkies in, it gave a little bit of a different sound that I could really vibe with. And I found that these full milkies sound better on like metallic plates and carbon fiber and whatnot, in my opinion. And these really shine on you know, FR4, PC, Palm. It's not to say that they sound bad on other things. As you'll see, I did use it on a brass plate in my Satisfaction 75. So these just kind of give a different sound, the polycarbonate bottom gives kind of a little bit higher pitch metallic sound almost when you downstroke, and dare I say it sounds a little bit marbly. So I really enjoy that. So apparently this concept is not new, and me being new to Frankenswitching did not know that these 3 switches right here, which could theoretically create the cream soda, are actually known as a Cthulhu switch. So kudos to the person who invented the Cthulhu switch, you know, by putting the ink, cream stem, and then the top of a milky together. Apparently these are kind of, I don't know how popular they are because I had never heard of them until I created the interest check, and I was informed that I had basically created a 70 to 75 cent Frankenswitch. So I just want to make sure I give kudos to the person that came up with the idea of putting these together first publicly. You know, you had a great concept, and now we're going to make it so more people can enjoy them. So how are we going to achieve that? Well, it's similar concept. This is Gateron's second switch to use their long pole linear stems. They are a 13.2 millimeter stem. And I can go ahead and demonstrate that to you here. So if you look here, 13.2. I know it's a little upside down, but you can see it there. And this is only the second switch to utilize the Gateron long poles. And the first switch was the pure berry, and this is the first switch to utilize this stem globally, as the pure berry is only available in certain markets. Yes, you can order it in, but it was available in other markets. Now, here is our spring. There is our spring. Not the best pair of tweezers, apparently. But you'll see here that the spring is about 18 millimeters long. And this is a gold-plated long spring. I decided to go gold-plated long spring because it helps reduce the spring crunch and the ping. And I like the poppiness of a long spring. And it is 63 grams, so it should give a nice snap on the upstroke. And then we've got our housings here. Now what I want to demonstrate today is I want to show you the lubrication application. So I'll just get in here very carefully. There you go. So as you can see, it's a pretty liberal application to the rails on both sides, but it is only the rails and nothing else. And this is important because the Oil Kings were the inspiration for how we want this to be out of the box. I wanted this to be accessible to everybody. I want people that are not into lubing, that are not down the rabbit hole that far, to be able to just jump in and throw these on a board, and you'll see, you know, factory, they sound pretty good and they feel amazing. There's really not a huge difference in the feel from a hand lube to the factory lube job. So let's go ahead and set these aside. I want to demonstrate how I would go about lubing these switches. So first things first, I want to show you that I would take the bottom housing, and let's see if we can't show. So if you look in the bottom housing here, if I can catch the light right, there is a little bit of lubricant down at the base of the rails. So what I do is I just swirl my brush as if I were lubing the bottom housing, and then I hit the rails, and what that does is it just kind of evens it out. Now when I lube, I typically use a takeout lid, and then I'll take a dab of lube. So we're only do one switch, so we're not going to get too much. and I get a little bit on both sides of my brush, and then I wipe my brush clean. Not clean, but so that way there's no extra on there. It's just, you know, a light layer. And then we'll take that, you see here, there's, let's see if I can get any closer. There's a very light layer of lubricant on that brush. Okay, so we take our housing, I take that light layer, and then I just brush, again, a swirl around, and then up on each one of the rails, and then I'll come back, get a little bit more lube, and we'll hit the top out points on the switch. So we're getting in here. And then you would normally, with the springs, you can just bag lube them. I'm just going to take a dab of lube here from the jar and hit the switch for the time being, or the spring for the time being. You know, you could donut dip them too. It just depends what you're into. But I normally just bag lube these springs because them not being dual or triple stage, they don't need any special attention. Now for the stem, it's the same thing, right? We get all of our lubricant off our brush. And we're going to take that lube and we're just going to spread it out. And the reason why we're doing this is so we don't accidentally over lube the switch. The people that are extreme veterans in this hobby will either wipe it off, or they will have an ultrasonic cleaner, or they've got the right chemical to remove PTFE from their switches that they can put in the solution. But for us, for the layman, we just want to even it out, so that way when we come back in here and we get a little bit of lube, we're going to hit the entire stem minus the pull, because sometimes that factory lubricant does get on the pull and the spring. That'll keep it from getting over lubed. And then this is what it should look like. So it's got a nice even light coating. It's not like super milky or anything. Now, as an alternative, you can use 3204 if you want something that's slightly thinner than 205G0. And then the last thing we come in here with is a Duroc 0.15 millimeter film. And the reason why we do that is to tighten up this housing and give it that really crisp, chalky, marbly, whatever word you want to give it, just to give it that really nice, rounded, well put together sound. Again, you don't have to do any of this. They sound and feel great stock, but I personally feel like I personally feel like the films really bring the sound together. So we got the film on, we got it all lubed up, and we're getting our top housing on. And then I like to work it in about 40 presses, and that way I'm able to check it by ear to make sure everything's good. So what I like to do is kind of put these up to the microphone to show you what a factory one sounds like versus a lubed one. So this is factory, and then this is lubed. Factory, lubed. So I'm holding those switches like this. This is how I hold the switches when I listen to them, so that way they've got something on most of the sides of them. And it does kind of bring the tone down a little bit. So But yeah, that's the Gateron cream soda, and I'm really looking forward to you guys getting these in your hands. And be sure to follow the creators and influencers that will be getting these so that way they can demo their own sounds. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on various social media outlets. But yeah, I hope that explains where they came from and showcases the strong points and helps you on your lubing journey with these guys. But let's go ahead and get into those sound tests.
In the good old summertime.